Hello and welcome back to Valoranting. I'm WTFmoses, and again we are joined by Pansy, and we have the honor this week of being joined by the man himself, Jordan Nothing Gilbert. He has been a professional Counter-Strike player for a long time, turned talent, and now dipping his toes into Valorant as well. We have a lot to talk about. We have a dev communication, we have a Twitter outburst, we have some drama. What are you guys excited about this week? Pansy, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm looking forward to it. There's been, as you said, some good gossip out there, some good drama happening, and I love a bit of drama. You know what I mean? It's no fun if everyone's just friendly to each other. You need a little bit of spice out there, and we're getting that little bit of spice.
Happy to talk to you as well,
Yeah,
Jordan. Happy to have you along for the ride. And how you doing this week?
doing great. Yeah, it's been fun. I feel like it's like when I first got back into the CS scene, like, but now I'm like older, so I get to watch a lot of this stuff happen from a different like perspective. It's fun. It's interesting to everything we're talking about today is kind of neat. So it's cool to have these conversations again about an esport that I'm a part of. Esport.
Yeah.
Still, it's developing, right? Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
A fledgling esport. Well, let's jump right into it. The first thing we have this week, another developer communication coming out, this time talking about the queue system as well as Peeker's Advantage, some other anti-cheat concerns. This was the first kind of communication I saw when it comes to solo queuing specifically. This is a question I wanted to kind of ask you guys as the ranked system has come out. Do you feel and I guess for context, the developers have kind of stated that they don't want solo queue to become a the preeminent way to matchmake, and they want to have players finding that group mentality. Let's actually quickly take a quick look at the video, them talking about this solo queue, and let's see if we can get some of their insight.
So currently, our plans for both unrated and rated is you can queue as up to a group of 5 if you want to, and you'll go through.
So if I queue solo, do I have a chance to match against a group of 5?
Currently you do, but there's some stuff about how we match you that'll adjust to it.
Okay.
Currently, right now, we don't really want to put restrictions. Our goal is actually like, really, you should feel good about the idea of grouping with 4 other people and playing the game, or 3 other people or 2 other people if you want to. We don't really want to feel like you get punished if you group together, because our game is inherently a very social game. But we also understand that playing as a solo can be a little bit complicated, so we're trying to make it an even experience across the board.
A little bit complicated. Jordan, do you think they did a good enough job explaining why they won't add solo queue?
I mean, I guess that's they do as good a job as they feel like they need to. It's kind of like I'm used to with Valve, so it's like them just having this discussion at all is kind of nice. You know, I guess I'm used to this. Like, I didn't play. I know like League of Legends has the solo duo queue, right? I don't fully understand how it works, but I know that like in some senses, like for instance, I play with Sean Garris. He's like, hey, I'm kind of just solo queuing. Like, he doesn't like to stack it. He feels like it's like not genuine, like climbing to Valorant. And I understand both perspectives. On one, you're like, hey, everyone should be encouraged to play in a more team environment, whether it's stacks or not. It forces you to kind of, you know, rise to the occasion and talk about your comp and have that relationship with players that you may not know online. And it's a cool thought. I guess in the past, I never really put much thought into like ladder systems, because in CSGO, I just went straight into like, hey, you try to join a team. I don't really care about like the game's ranking. And this, it's funny to me because I'm like getting more tilted than ever playing competitive these days than I ever did like CSGO, like matchmake, because I'm like, I seem to care so much more. But yeah, I guess I never really thought, like, it seems to make sense that you'd want to play with multiple people, but I never really thought, like, oh, maybe there should be a certain ladder just for solo duo queue. I've actually still been looking for more context on this myself.
I think looking and I want to kind of give my insight as a non-pro. Just there's so many people that have come into gaming, especially a free-to-play title that is, I guess, trying to have a broad appeal. If you need to have 5 people to have a chance of competing on a ranked match, or you're going to be dealing with, you know, the randoms you come across, it can be a little bit frustrating. So, Pansy, do you think it's maybe a little bit too early for them to be deciding not to do a solo queue?
I think it's just hard to to almost limit more interaction in the community when it's already still quite small at the moment, right? Obviously, it's growing, and the more people that play, the better the queue systems are gonna eventually get, right? Like once you can get like, okay, let's say I do want a solo queue, you know I can get 4 other people coming in with the mentality of, yep, okay, it's a solo queue, let's be communicative, let's kind of approach it from that. Right now, I don't think there's enough of a player base to just be like, yep, here's your solo queue, here's your duo queue. I don't mind it if in like the matchmaking systems they have, they try and like lean it. So like, okay, let's say there's 2 groups of 2 people here, and then a random solo queue in there. Okay, let's try and match them against someone of a similar composition, right? So they play against a bit of a mix, but with, you know, some pre-mates. I think that's more than enough. Again, I never really did, like, whenever I played competitively, like COD 4, Enemy Territory, you'd go into a team, you'd go into, you know, IRC groups, you'd get your games, you'd go onto clan base, you'd play your ladder games with that. Like, I'm not really of the current generation that's used to just, you know, matchmaking's my avenue in, right? So
Yeah.
again, my mentality is probably off for some of these people, because like obviously the way they want to improve and get better is through the rankings and show that they are good. But I think that's when you need those third-party sites or an in-game like ranking or ladder system that then pushes people further if they want to be competitive. They need that avenue, because this game isn't about solo queue. Like League of Legends, you can play without voice comms. You can play, you know, a little bit just like, oh, my comp is this, my top lane is here, this is my, you know, champion, my hero.
Some people play
I
without
stay
voice comms
literally in
here
my lane.
too.
Oh, dude, it's nuts. But no, I mean, like for me, I don't think it's as necessary as some people are making out. I think you should be encouraged to talk with your teammates regardless, but we all know what it's like, right? You play solo queue, you might get the one guy who's got the jumbo jet microphone that just like echoes to oblivion. You've got the one guy who refuses to speak, the one who does not speak English and refuses to. Like, it's just you get what you're given. But I don't really care. I don't look to that as like, I'm gonna get a competitive team and play ranked in Valorant. It's like, I'll go play a cup, I'll go get my buddies and play a proper cup, so we can actually, you know, do real stuff rather than just like messing around.
I'm gonna put
Moses.
this in a hypothetical for you. Nothing, Jordan. I wanted to say. So I think about CS. If I bump into you in the street, we've never met. You can say whatever you want to me, and I say, hey man, I know you're a CS player. I solo queued my way all the way to global elite. What do you say to me? Cool, right? Like, all right, right. So, I mean, what have you done in tournaments?
What,
So,
what
Valorant's
part of
supposed to
your
be this esports
refrigerator
type,
are you
right?
posting this screenshot on?
Yeah, exactly, right. So, like, what have you done in tournaments? What are you doing in ESCA
No, I
or
mean,
FPL or?
like, I guess in any of these games, even like CS:GO, if someone goes to Global Elite, like, I at least know if they were to be like, hey, you want to like play sometime, like, obviously they're not going to be like one of my pro teammates, but I'd be like, oh, this guy, like, I could probably be like 3-2 split, dust 2, fake mid B, go up catwalk, you know, like they'd be like, okay, like, yeah. And so then like there's like that level of expectation. But yeah, what was the question? This is
The question essentially is: it doesn't matter then if they add a solo queue, if really the markers of skill are going to be outside the regular matchmaking pool anyway.
Well, that's kind of the question I've been asking myself. Is that's why since I don't play League of Legends, I was wondering if maybe one of you guys would explain to me how it happens. Because sometimes people in my chat come in and they're like, "Oh, they need to do what they did in League and have the solo and duo deal." Because for me, yeah, like it's just hard to make ranking mean. Like the algorithm must be tough to create, right? Because you know how you because yeah, the truth is when I do play with some immortals and I'm players, I'm like, okay, well, like you could already tell that the matchmaking system isn't awesome because these guys' mechanics isn't very good, or like the way they're reacting to things I'd be like, that should be platinum or whatever, and then I start laughing at myself, like, I don't even know, like, how would I quantify that? Like, so.
Yeah, it's a difficult.
Yeah, but I'm curious.
situation.
What is it in League? Is it you could only solo and duo queue to a certain rank or something, or?
No, basically when you can go all the way to the very top, but you're only like if you solo queue, you're queuing in with only other people playing solo. You're not queuing in with other groups. So the same thing happens with duo queue in that situation where you'd be queuing in with duos and then maybe mixed with a solo or something like that. Obviously, if there's only 5 people on one team, you can't have 3 sets of duos. And then there would be your team queue. So that would be the separate queue. So really splitting queues becomes a bit of an issue there, but I think it's really early, I suppose, is the overarching concept here. It's early. We don't really
I do
know
just
what
wanna
the.
like
Go ahead.
highlight that I think that mentality of like individualism doesn't necessarily work as well in an FPS game like this. Like if you could be the sickest individual in the world, and I think we started to see some of those come through like the FPLs, but they've learned like way better habits already to get to that point, right? You can't just be like an aim star or pug star and get that far and then get picked up, right? It's like I think in League of Legends, your individual mechanical ability can transcend into a team well enough that solo queuing and being like, you know, the best solo queuing player in the world, you know, someone's gonna look at you and go, all right, clearly they've got enough. But like I think in CS and, you know, Valorant style games, you can't just go, well, the kid can aim, but like how are they going to integrate into a team, right? Do they know how to act in a team environment? You can't play the same way. You can't have the same room. You can't just like bait out half of your teammates to get up on the scoreboard, right? It's
and
a
and a lot of times
completely.
in FPS, those aggro grade aimers are doing exactly what you said. They're just kind of like running into bomb sites early round and owning people and out mechanics in them. And that's like, yeah, okay, the second you play a good player who just posted on that angle and you die, what happens to your mindset? What do you say to your team? What do you do? Yeah, so
absolutely. Well, the second part of that dev letter is actually talking about another of their launch promises, which is Peeker's Advantage, netcode, and all that stuff. They went in deep on this as well. Gave a very long explanation about how Peeker's Advantage happens, how they're trying to mitigate it, and it's the communications is great. Like it's good to know how they're approaching the problem, but at the end of the day, there's a result, and most players don't really care what the math is when it comes to it. Is it an issue? And I guess I'll put that to you first, Jordan. Is Peeker's Advantage noticeable when you're playing? Like, are you playing aggressive more often? Are you consistently playing that way?
Yeah, so this is the problem. Like, it's hard in shooter games with like any engine I've found, because I've played across multiple engines in shooter games. And for FPS, is that like I talked to them. I don't know, like this. I don't think this is giving out too much crazy info, but basically, they told me they tried faster movement speed right away than like is currently there, right? And they just said like they wanted to not slow it down too much, and that's part of the reason that like this is a separate convo, but that the audio levels are where they're at, because they felt like they had to balance like how fast you moved with like, and now it's a little slower. They still wanted to give a little bit higher audio to the footsteps, because they did initially have a faster movement speed, because they were trying to mitigate this Peeker's Advantage that they felt when they were doing their own testing, like developing it. Because we started to notice that, we're like, oh, the movement's slow. At least there's no Peeker's Advantage. You can hold an angle again. Then you start to notice, you're like, actually, in the small strafe movement, when you step into someone moving up and down a corridor, there's for sure Peeker's Advantage. And so, you know, I think as a CS player, you start to realize, like, that's why I always do those things in like my stream where I like count down and someone's gonna peek me when I'm playing the lesser skilled player, because what you know that's gonna happen is like the urge of like a natural player is like when you know someone's running at you, you know that you have the element of surprise, so you peek. So when you get better, it is kind of a skill set, but it's like, should it be? I don't know. But it is kind of a skill set to say, all right, I'm running up this corridor. They have my audio cue. Like I almost run as a bait for them to peek sometimes, and like I'm like stutter stepping like every quarter of the way of my route, just because I'm expecting someone to swing on me. So it's like, you kind of build it into your play a little, and sometimes you're holding an angle. And I watch people in matchmake that are like pretty good players, like immortal, high, whatever. And I'm see them, and they like, get a nice kill, and then they run in this whole angle. I'm like, oh, this guy's about to die. Like it's because it is like there's some subtlety to like there's Peeker's Advantage.
And Pansy, do you think that the technical explanation that they've given, as deep as it goes, does it make a difference to the player if their experience isn't good? Like, well, in their perception?
I mean, okay, well, like half the time, I think most people don't know what the hell they're talking about in the nicest way. Like a lot of people who complain about like Peeker's Advantage is like they've just got like wide peaked and they're pissed that they lost the fight, and it's like, all right, like, yeah, whatever, move on. It's coming from like Valve side of things, where they explain fuck all to the audience, like just deal with it. That's how the game is, no communication. I think it's good that Riot are talking about it and discussing it, because obviously at the start of things they were like, yeah, we're gonna try and combat Peeker's Advantage, but also it's, you know, round trip time to a server, right? So like Peeker's Advantage comes from like, it's not just ping. People think it's just ping. It's between the two players. I think Rainbow Six did a really heavy breakdown on it, because they had a similar problem with their game. And the devs did this huge letter better, you know, all these incredibly like detailed explanations. And at the end of the day, people are still going to complain. Like if you're on LAN, it gets different, you know, but we're not there. We half the people can't leave their houses right now. Like
that's where I tangent into my rage about server location.
Yeah, there you go. Like, I
Sorry.
mean, if they do their best and they could get as many server locations, and you're willing to suffer through longer queue times to get potentially better made games for you, then sure. But then you do that, people will complain the queues are too long. I can't get a game. I can't get a game. You know what I mean? It's like, and then if they die again, Pika's advantage. Fuck that. Fuck this game. You know what I mean? Like, I think yes, it's an issue, but no one's got it 100% right. No one has completely eliminated Pika's advantage unless you're completely at LAN in a test environment where everything is equal. Then you can approach it in like a way where you can adjust it. Right now, I don't know what, you know, Killer 398's playing on at home. He's got his dial up, his mom's on the Wi-Fi, like shit's dropping out. He's wide peeking around to like, you know, kill me, and I can't do anything. It's fine. It shit happens. It's online games, so yeah, Pika's advantage does kind of suck. And at the start, I think they said like the 128 tick servers, and I think it was like they expect 35 MS or less for 70% of the player base. That's not bad, right? But you might get that one player who's not having that experience, and you might suffer for it. Yeah, it sucks, but the go around is longer queue times, like harder conditions to play under, slowing down the games you're getting, and that's going to be the next issue. So yeah, as long as they keep talking about it and like have an idea
of your
of
friends across the.
Exactly, right? Like, that's the thing. It's like suddenly my buddy that lives, you know, maybe 2 countries over or in another state in America.
It's already
like,
happening
oh,
with
yeah,
Sean Garris and I.
God
Yeah, we
damn,
kind of
that's-
queued the other day, and Sean is sitting there telling me, yeah, Jordan, no, stop playing with the East Coast.
You have so many factors involved, right? You have all these different locations, and ultimately, if you put every rule in place that people want to have the best matchmaking experience possible, you're going to be sitting in 15-minute queues no matter what you're trying to do. So it'll ruin the experience. Well, potentially ruin the experience on different angles and depending on player locations and a bunch of other stuff. But they've at least attempted to explain it, and they actually go into the next topic a little bit, and that's skins, which is an interesting topic considering how close Valorant is to CS:GO, and you know the long sordid history of weapon skins in CS doesn't need to be talked about. But I guess I wanted to pose a question to you, Jordan. Do you think that with their current or their skin model, do you think that there should be any level of trading? Is there any interest whatsoever in potentially harnessing the dangerous, evil power of skin gambling? Do we open that door again?
It's you know, it's a fun thing for people to have collectible type things and then to be able to trade them.
Yep.
Makes it more entertaining for them. And, you know, in terms of everything else that can be developed from that kind of thing, it's like some of it's kind of inevitable. Obviously, if they want to keep it away from being just skins, they can, but you know, somehow it's going to happen in another form or something. If you're talking about gambling, yeah, I mean, you know,
it's a touchy subject. I'm going to jump in because
let me Moses.
Okay,
let me have it.
Okay,
How dare you?
All right,
let me have
all
this.
right, all right.
I mean, I think. Do you want natural interest or inflated interest in this, right? Like, we all remember when CSGO majors had the cobblestone potential drops, right? So the viewership instantly tripled. It was a load of bot accounts. Half of it was people who didn't give a shit about CS, but they could potentially get a skin to equate to something. I think at the end of the day, for me, I don't really want that. I don't really need it, if I'm honest. Yes, it can boost numbers. Yes, it can be exciting. It can be interesting. I remember, putting skins on games and it being quite a fun thing to do because you're way more invested in the result. But I wouldn't mind it if it was only involved in the client and there was no trading available. If you get IP locked out of account if you try and trade it. But let's say you get like a fantasy booking game. You watch this event, you get that skin. Awesome. That means, I was there, I watched that. That's a nice little like memorabilia piece. But it doesn't have to go into real money terms. How they police that, that's their problem. I don't want to touch that shit. But I mean, it could be a fun thing if it's kept within the realm of not real money.
I hear you. And my view is that Riot has done a good job of observing how others have done it in the past and the mistakes of others in the past. If they are able to harness it in a way and keep it within the client, you don't have we're not repeating mistakes that have been done in the past. If they're able to channel that interest and that desire that people naturally have, because it's just one of those things that comes along with competitive sports. If they can make it work, they have the ability and the chance to really drive interest in their game, but also have the engagement that others have, failed to capitalize on. Because and you said it yourself, you might triple that viewer number, and it might be inflated, not accurate to the actual fandom. But the people who don't care about that kind of thing are the advertisers and the people talking about the popularity of the game. And I think those two things, Riot is going to probably want to address in one way or another, and how they handle that, I think, is left to be seen. But I think both methods have interesting outcomes.
Pro players are like that, right? Pro players, even who don't have any care about skins themselves, they know that it could potentially benefit the financial model of the organizations, which will then create more incentive to raise the salaries like they did in CSGO.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, what I want to see, just quickly on that, give team skins in the game. You know what I mean? Let's say EG wins a game. Let's say, I don't know, whoever it is, T1, they get their gun in the game, right? And let's say it's only for, if you watch that final, how cool would it be for branding purposes? Like how many players have now got that skin? How many players want that skin? You know what I mean? That shit would be so dope. Even having in-game, just client side, just spectator side. I think CGS had it on 1.6 or Source, it was wherever they're playing, but the models themselves had different outfits to highlight different things, right? So if it was Team A and Team B, they'd have Team A's colors, or you know what I mean, stuff like that. You could do cool things that don't affect actual gameplay. Obviously don't change the player models to be luminescent green or camo, you know what I mean? But you could do something fun and show off actual branding in a game, you know what I mean? That'd be sick.
Absolutely. And the last thing they covered in that dev letter was talking about penalties for being AFK. It's not as interesting as a topic as skin gambling, in my opinion. But regardless, they do want to have some penalties going out for AFKs, which include some queue restrictions for folks who are AFKing for multiple rounds. Has this been a problem for you, Jordan? Are you seeing people AFKing a lot? You like it? Okay. Yeah,
it's normally me who's AFK until last second. I once we go live, I try to stay at the keyboard and mouse. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Some people, a lot of, it's how do you not have that? I guess because it's some people will say, hey, maybe I just want AFK to order my delivery of food, but it's okay, that should be just one round at one moment. Then if you're consistently AFK. Whatever's happening in your life, maybe you shouldn't be gaming right now. Whatever you're doing. So
it's round 12 and my house is on fire. What choice is yours? What choice are you making, Pansy?
You're banned.
Bro, I'm playing the game out, dude. Just close it out, boys. We're rushing. Go real quick.
All right, let's move on to the next bit, and it's the lightning round. We have a bunch of smaller topics we wanted to cover off this week. And the first one I wanted to pose to you guys is, and I'll start with you again, Jordan. Should there be a surrender option? If you're down 8-0, should you have the ability to tap out early?
Just 3 out of 5 people have to accept it or whatever.
Yeah.
That's gonna be hilarious. There's some people mad. No, we don't give up. Every good round, bro. What are we down 10-0? Who the fuck is nothing? This guy
we can
sucks.
win this.
We can shit on it right now.
Pansy, surrender option or no?
I don't know.
Yeah, put it in. I mean, as long as some things have been hit, right? So it's if maybe you've got an AFK player, someone's left, you can automatically vote for it, or you need 4 out of 5 votes, whatever it is. Yeah, I think that's fine.
I think
there you go.
I think 4 out of 5 seems reasonable as well.
4 out of 5.
And I guess my experience, my limited experience in League, was that the one thing that you're going to hate seeing if they do implement that is when you go down 2-0 and one guy has got some bone to pick and he starts mashing that vote surrender, time to surrender 2 rounds in. Toxic. That's what I would be fearful of.
You're gonna be toxic either way, though, right?
Toxic.
Yeah. Well, it would murder team morale.
You might even want to be canceled. What's the penalty if you do you not get a game right away?
I think if you just surrender, you just get dumped out of the queue and you lose. It's just insta L and that's it. So that's at least how it works in League. I'm not sure how they would want to handle it here. But I mean the games are short enough. 13 rounds. If you can't wait, what is it, an average game length in matchmaking? 25 minutes, something like that. 30 minutes. I don't think it can be quite as bad as League. But the next one, This one's a bit of an interesting one. This is kind of some gamesmanship here. These guys have figured out. Let's watch this video really quick. Own team killing. There's a bit of a situation here. Let's take a look at the economy real quick. Just take note of what this looks like. For 9-4, it looks like the actually, Pansy, why don't you walk us through this?
My eyes instantly go to the ping, just because 10 out of 10, gotta love it. Riot, it will be under 35 MS, but really, you gotta look at the attacking side. They've lost the first pistol round, they're onto the second one here. They're sitting around like between 2.5 and 1.9, so some invested a little heavier than others, and they got fuck all out of it. The other team did pretty well. They've got the shittier buy here, the SMGs, the shotguns, and traditionally after this round should be won by whoever won the pistol. It should go 2 rounds, and then the third normally flips to the other side. And yeah, so just keep note of the credits and everything else that plays through this, and you'll see.
Oh
yeah,
that's no good.
This.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I can't remember when the max round loss bonus kicks in, because traditionally, so here you go, you can see it like 4.7, 4.9, 4.4. Traditionally the third round, if you won the first 2, on the third round, the team against you, if they've not like weirdly invested, it flips the economy, so you get a pretty solid buy on the third. People, like, because of CS, they're so used to it being like the 4th round where you get like good buys, or you get like the fight background. On this, it's the 3rd, depending on if they've done damage or got a spike plant. But yeah, obviously you can see they're going to be able to get on the full buy at 4.9. So, funsies.
Interested to hear your thoughts on this. Is this greasy? I guess is the question. Like, you're giving up a round for an economic advantage in the next. Do you think that's fair play, Jordan?
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Audio. Nice. I was saying something in my stream right there. What happened to this in CS? I'm trying to remember what the fix was. Didn't this happen in early like 1.6?
I think
in the day
even
when everyone used to
in
just save,
the
right?
game.
That was the old SK stack. SK used to just camp like all upper B tunnels on Dust 2, and they're like, we'll stay here the whole fucking round. If you guys want to run into our crosshair, we'll get a couple. And I don't. So what would be the penalty options? Like, how my brain is just. I'm trying to.
Well,
think
you're
like, how
essentially
you
you're giving up a round in order for the economic advantage that you're gaining in the next.
Yeah, you're saying, hey, we're not going to get a kill, but we're not giving them any kill money. No, like the implications are kind of obvious, but how could you stop that from being a thing? Would you say if you
money loss on team damage,
TK,
I guess.
Yeah, what's the team kill money loss? Is there any right now?
I don't think there's any, because the player there, I think it was Raze who did the nade, didn't lose any money. So I think there's no penalty, because there's not many things that can do that much team damage anyway. So
it's only abilities.
Yeah, I guess
you can only do it with abilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that also puts the game in a weird position.
Team kill or something.
Yeah,
it puts yourself in a weird position if you get an errant nade, like if you're Raze and you're using all your goddamn abilities, and you have a team kill, an errant team kill come in. Is that going to be
careful,
something that? Yeah, I guess you got to. Yeah, those paint shells. Got to be careful where those things.
Can't be just blindly wallbanging in CS:GO either.
I mean, I think you also get a reward in CS on the other side, right? So if like a enemy team kills, or you know what I mean, I think there's like a reward on the other side too. Again, I haven't paid that much attention to that happening, because it's not a common thing you see in like high level CS, and I don't watch that much matchmaking or play that much where people are team killing me that much, or you know what I mean. It's not a common thing, but I think there's like one you get punished being the team killer, and then the other team might also get a benefit. So yeah, I think that's the case as it is. I think.
The next bit I wanted to talk about is actually an epic tweet chain from Tommy. He actually talks about CS round length and match length. This is kind of it's so freaking long. I don't think we can actually scroll through it in this segment. Someone needs to tell Tommy that there's a Medium article that he can write if he wants to get his point across instead of 20 straight tweets. But just kind of looking through the information here, talking about round length in relation to Valorant. The current situation in CS, at least in his opinion, is that things are going just a little bit too long. In the context of Valorant, do you think that there's any lessons to be learned here, Jordan, with how the match lengths are timed or the amount of rounds? And do you think that he's got a point here, even relating to CS?
I understand why he's saying it in CS. Obviously, aside from the production side of things, now that you don't just get hard reset off of a double win loss, like you used to. In CS, now you could basically rebuy more and extend it, and that's why we're seeing these closer, more drawn out matches. This is essentially his point, right? So now that we're only playing first to 13, and it kind of balances out in Valorant because, and we'll probably get to this later with another point, but the general gameplay for some people is fast and matchmake, but I feel like the high levels gameplay in Valorant is gonna be slower overall than CS:GO gameplay, like more often than not, because you're trying to drain everyone's abilities for sure. Like you're trying to drain utility in CS, and it's even more punishing in this game. You have occasional quick plays, so I think from both perspectives, from production side and from like just like the flow of gameplay, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about Valorant economy and like you were saying, Lauren, like how the team who loses pistol technically has a better third round buy. That's why I find myself ghost armoring a lot when I win pistol and like matchmake.
Yeah.
I just ghost armor and then I have like 4-9 or whatever. So yeah, I'm still figuring out my viewpoint on this. There's definitely arguments for both sides, but yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about any thoughts on that there, Lauren, as far as Tommy's tweets.
Just because I came from COD 4 Pro Mod, I played didn't have an economy system, and we played MR12. And honestly, being a commentator in that, and being a player in that, and then being a commentator in CS, I still like MR12. I think with the economy in Valorant being a little bit, I feel like less punishing, even though CS right now is kind of scuffed. I still think of CS as like, back when its economy seemed to actually punish people for messing up. Ignore what it is now. I feel like with the economy being so forgiving in Valorant, in my opinion, having 15 rounds kind of like waters it down. You don't need it to be that long. I think the pistol round being 3, you get the buys coming in on the 3rd, like pretty decent buys. You don't need 15 rounds. So I think for a broadcast length and for a point of interest, MR12 is fine. In my opinion, I think it's like a really solid basis to be on because every round feels like super intense, super important. There's no like middle ground really. It's all octane. So purely from like a commentating perspective, I love MR12. It's my more favored go-to. But again, that's just me wanting to go home at the end of the day probably. But it's still good.
So within that, the round timers, the match lengths, etc., do you think that there should be, and I'll put this one to Jordan first as well, do you think there should be timeouts, tactical timeouts during Valorant gameplay?
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I mean, obviously the freeze time is longer, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times, at high level in CS, it's more of like even just killing momentum, right? For the other team, sometimes like you're kind of just getting shit on, and like maybe you read the game well twice, and then you still lost fights. So you're like, all right, like let's take a deep breath. Literally, sometimes they might not even talk about strategy, and you're gonna do what you're like. Yeah, next round let's run a default. All right, take a timeout really quick. Cool, and then you still don't change what you're gonna do. You're still gonna run a default next round, but you just get that little. And I think that's a cool part of sports. It's like a little extra card you could pull when you're getting shit on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you want to BM, like what was that match in CS? Who TO was it? Carry? Who was that? Who was that? Was Kerrigan was on the team, right?
Kerrigan,
like
I think so.
They're up like 14-1 and they pulled the TO. Oh, and they're up 14-1. I was like, wow.
Wow.
Seems good,
Feels
dude.
bad. Lauren, any thoughts on tactical timeouts?
Oh, throw them in. It builds fun stories for me. As a viewer, you sit there and you're like, okay, what are they going to come back with? What mind games are they playing right now? What are they going to adjust? It's time for my co-caster to talk, right? Like, it's normally like Moses or, you Moses, the other one, the other bald Moses. I have to be really specific. I can't really just leave it up.
Yeah, we
in the
never
air,
get
but,
mixed up for
like,
each other. It never happens.
No, never. But no, I just like, I said,
Right,
it's
my
time
chat
for them
over
just
here.
to like
Yeah,
theory
come on.
craft. But it's good.
Yeah,
It's good
you know
shit,
what?
though.
To be
Moses
fair,
Moses.
I
he's
love
prob-
that.
I get mistaken for him probably way more than he gets mistaken for me. So, so I'll take
Wait,
the
are you
attention.
He
the
doesn't have the
PUBG
beard.
caster?
Hang on.
Woo.
Yeah, are you the PUBG guy? Yeah, no, I remember you can't. Yeah, absolutely, that's what I get the most. Yeah, so and really, what I wanted to do with the end of this segment is hit the hard hitting questions. I saved the toughest one for last, and that is, are these cats cute?
In the little viper. Like a female version like that.
Oh, this is the first time I've seen Jet in a
Jet.
while in cat form.
Okay, a flying cat
Favorite
with knives
Bible, at
floating
least.
around her.
Do not pet.
Wow.
Do not
I
pet
heard
this
that.
cat.
It's fine.
It's
the
cute.
Cypher's my cat. Just like, I just pooped in your
You
refrigerator.
see in Whitmer will tell you it is the most viable.
I can't.
Jet is the most
I can't deal
viable.
with that. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, Jet.
No.
Whitmer is an
No.
instant Jet pick every game.
Oh, nice.
Why do that to yourself, man? Why do it to yourself? Maybe the cat picture's just encouraging him now. That's it. You just got to send that to him. So, it'll boost the morale.
We've had some map changes come in. That's the next topic I wanted to talk about is the changes that came into the maps. The last patch, the big one, had a bunch of changes. Let's take a look at Split first. Split, I think, was the biggest one that I thought needed some changes. It felt very defensive sided. Jordan, do you still feel that Split has that defensive sided feel to it?
Depends how many abilities are on the screen and how low my FPS is. But I like it's okay. So the more I played Split, the more I realized, like, I think early on, because you're so close to mid, everyone wanted to take fights. Like, but the more and more I play it, I see a lot of big rounds put up, 7+ rounds put up on attack, because people take it slow and they drain out the mid utility, and then literally the map name comes into play here, and you're able to split more on the site. So I do think these changes helped a little bit, because one of the hardest things to do anything about was the instant mid push from the Sage wall.
Yep.
So that helps. And then at A, that the first screenshot you showed there, I like that A, that crevice hold, because before it was ridiculous. Like, an Opera could post there, and like, unless you wasted an ability or flash, which you had to, they could just peek you and post on you. So now it forces them to drain utility faster, which is fair. Because when it first came out, I was like, old school nuke flashback straight away. I'm like, this is just gonna be like 12-3, or in this case 10-2s all day, 11-1. So I like the changes.
So with the current map pool, with the with the current map pool, Pansy, do you think that there's enough right now to keep people engaged? It's been a bit of a point of feedback that the maps just maybe don't have enough diversity. Do you think that the changes are enough to keep people interested?
I'd like more maps, but I think people just need to get better at playing those maps as well. Like, I'm glad about what you said about Split there, right? It was a little nuke-like, but as you said, you learn how to do Split, you learn how to kind of, like, not you guys, I mean, like, most top-end players, CS players, already have that mentality of, right, I'm going to punish rotations, I'm going to take mid-control, we're going to go for these, like, nice 3-2 splits. Like, they've already got that just in their head, right? It's just natural to them. But the amount of players who don't, and then they get frustrated and they just never play Split, or if they play it, they don't care because, oh, it's just defense-sided. If we don't get defense, we ain't going to win. Like, the map changes are good on here specifically because you can get a fight on the attacking side. Like, you don't get free CT aggression anymore. You have, like, a 1-to-1 fight on both B and A now on, like, the kind of long pushes, which is nice. So, yes, of course, I'd love more maps. But I'd also like people to stop being, like, so one-dimensional in their mentality to approaching these. And, even hearing Jordan saying about, drawing out utility, it's something that, again, yes, high-end players will instantly know about this, but your average player won't understand why doing a default to draw out utility and then maybe leaning towards a site might help them win a round, right? It's these things they need to pick up, rather than just, like, blaming, oh, I'm bored of this map. It's like, okay, well, try and perfect that map. I mean, CS players have been playing, like, the same 5 maps for the last almost 20 years. Like, they're fine. But I'd like to see more maps. I'd like to see wider choke points. I'd like to see plenty of things, but we're still early, and I don't really mind people trying to perfect these right now. So for now, people just need to get better at the maps in front of them.
Definitely, I think refining it will make a big difference. And let's take a quick look at the Haven and Bind changes. Well, these ones a little bit more minor than the changes on Split. And while we take a look at these other changes, I'm interested to know your first choice in bans right now, Jordan. Is there a map that you just feel is your first choice for bans in a competitive environment?
First I banned Split, then I banned Haven, then no, I'm kidding. It's I actually like Haven probably the most. Even though it's a 3-site thing, is like not traditional. It's I don't know, something about the map and the design draws me in a little bit more than the other two. Bind isn't bad. I still love hate with Bind. I think for a while I was vetoing Split more. But the more I play it, and you realize that other people don't like it as much either. You're like, okay, if we could just have like a good mentality on this map, and like Lauren was talking about, like, have good fundamentals, you could beat a lot of teams on that map, because I feel like a lot of teams get impatient on Split. But yeah, I don't really love the map design split. Like I'm not like fiending to play it when I open up competitive. So yeah, I think for some reason Haven draws me in. Bind is a pretty good map. I just feel like it's a lot of tight choke points. I don't know if this is like if I'm jumping ahead of the agenda here of discussion, but yeah,
free.
I
No,
don't
it's
know
all
what you
good.
guys
I
agree. I
guess
feel like
that
on
was
Bind,
good.
like I just want to run up long B the whole game because I'm like, okay, there's a lot of space here and it's like octagon I could fight. I'll go shower sometimes to bully people if I feel like I can, but you feel like you're just stuck, kind of claustrophobic in some areas. Kind of like Split, you get kind of claustrophobic in some areas.
And there's, I guess, and I'll leave this one with Pansy as we talk a little bit about. It kind of seems that Bind is the odd man out. It's like people are seeming to be like, let's play Split. Let's see how they can do on Split. Let's see if we can take an easy defensive side and have that. And Bind seems to be the odd man out. Are you finding this similar in your gameplay? Do you think there's any reason why that might be?
I think Bind. I think Jordan like hit the nail on the head for me there. Like, I wish they made it a little bit wider in a lot of these choke points to give a little bit more room to work because, as I said, like one smoke and you're cut off. You know, the rotations, yeah, you do have like the TPs and stuff there, but I'd like to see it widened a bit. I think it's become a little bit stale for me as well, just purely because, I mean, there's only so much variety when there's so little space to work. You know, like look at this A hit. Like, you know, I play Brimstone a hell of a lot. The amount of times it's like, right, I need to go take shower control because then I can do the 3 set smokes that everyone does. Okay, let's do the same sage wall. You know, it feels a little bit repetitive. I'd love to see it opened up so you see a little bit more variety coming through. But I don't think it's an odd one out. I just think it seems like it was a bit linear in design. I think the theory is great that they don't have like a traditional mid section. I like it that they've incorporated that TP there so you can kind of use it like a mid. Like as I said, it's a fun concept, but I think that it's become very repetitive. We're almost saying the exact same execute time and time again, and it's just it doesn't play out that exciting for me as a spectator and a commentator.
Fair enough. You know what? I've been dying to talk about this, and I want to do it right now. So let's wrap that up and let's move on to the next topic, which is a bit of drama happening in the competitive community.
You drama
Dafran,
queen.
a well-known Overwatch streamer turned Valorant potential pro, had a bit of a blow-up on Twitter after it did not go, I guess, a miscommunication turned into an out-and-out brawl between him and an opposing team captain. Let's take a look at some of these tweets here. Essentially, what happened was Dafran and his team missed a posted notice in a Discord about a final matchup against Hip here, who had to take to Twitter, was tweeting at him, couldn't talk to him in his Twitch chat because it was sub mode only, and then it got a little bit of heat coming back the other way, and then Dafran went completely off the deep end and started talking all sorts of trash about Hip. And sent apparently, well, didn't send, but some people came over to his channel, started trash talking him as well. The admins got into it, and finally, Soloqueue had to step in and permanently banned him from competitive play in their organization permanently. That was then after that, Dafran decided he wanted to get the last word and left this bomb on Twitter, which I will read aloud because of how good it is. Suck my ball sack. Joke of a tournament and organization. Hip and his team are of washed up Overwatch players too scared to play. Bunch of bitches. Have fun with your dog shit. I'll let that one linger for a moment. Jordan, do you think that Dafran has potentially hurt his chances as a pro player, and does he give a fuck about it? You're muted, I believe.
I think to the latter question there, he does not give any fucks. He has none to give. And, I mean, this just shit happens in every game. I've played online tournaments. You guys have probably tried to cast online tournaments where someone's just not showing up or someone's AFK. It's like, we see it time and time again with any personalities. There's a lot of CS players who something happens, this fucking monitor and this is shit, and I don't know why this didn't happen for me, and they tweet, and it's like, really, it could have just been like, it's unfortunate that we couldn't figure out this. Like, there's just 10,000 other ways to say that. If the guy's good, I actually don't know a lot about Dafran. But he could have just been like, oh, silly that they didn't reach out to me directly, or sorry, unfortunate that we didn't see the Discord, and he probably wouldn't have got banned, and maybe, yeah, there's Unnecessary. The whole thing seems.
So the rest of the rest of Dafran's team are not nobodies. Like these are guys that have some hopes,
Yep.
I imagine, of competing. And I guess my
I'm pretty
question
sure
to you,
he got
Pansy,
banned
is
on Twitch today, by the way.
oh, did he?
He just
Well,
got banned on Twitch like an
tremendous.
hour ago for this.
All wins,
yeah.
all 30 days.
There we go. There we go.
What did he do?
So here's-
TOS does not
oh,
allow
okay.
you to trash talk other partnered streamers, so I'm probably assuming that's why, but it might be an incorrect assumption. So I'm sure someone will be able to explain more.
Yeah, I think as information comes out and these things sometimes do develop while we're sitting here
those
talking.
ads.
I imagine then that Twitch has some level of evidence that says that he did indeed, and this was something I didn't really want to talk about because followers are followers; they'll go trash talk people whether you say to or not.
Yeah.
But there's potential that he got to the point where he directed the vitriol from his fans to Hip himself. And I guess this still leaves the question I wanted to answer from you, Pansy, is like if I'm on Dafran's team, I want to become a potential pro player. What am I thinking?
I mean, it's.
If it was you, what would
let's
you be
be honest, they're all streamers. Like, it's. I mean, I was casting Twitch Rivals, and Scream almost missed the start of one of their games. Like, it happens so often. Do you the amount of fucking tournaments we are sat there, like, filling like 20-30 minutes, and chat's just going, start the fucking game. No one wants to hear the casters. I'm like, dude, I'm looking at the lobby, and we're missing 3 players still. It ain't us. Like. There's been times where it's my fault or like it's production's fault, but it's few and far between, dude. Like the amount of times people are late to shit, but like blowing up like that, it feels just kind of like I don't know. I think it's just childish to do that shit. Like I get it, but also you're kind of just screwing yourself over. Like be pissed off. Like be honest about it. Like okay, maybe there was a miscommunication,
Yeah, exactly.
but also if it's a tournament day, like go check. Like I kid you not, I was the worst person on my team. I never knew what the hell the structure of the tournament I was playing in. I didn't know when I had to turn up. Like I had to be babied. Like literally, like here's the IP. Be here at this time. Like I was brain dead.
That's a lot of
I
players.
kid you not. I couldn't sign in on like it was like Cyber Gamer at the time. Like dude, I was just dumb. All I did was join the server and play at the right time. And sadly, when it's just like a lot of streamer teams, each of these players, like, I think it was like Mixwell, Scream, and Dafran, I think we're all on the same team. I might be mistaken. I doubt they're the guys having to go into like Discords being like, hey guys, let me get that IP real quick. Let me just schedule the game. They rock up, they play the games. Like shit happens, deal with it. Next time maybe don't blow up on Twitch. Like if you wanna stick to your guns and trying to make that your like vibe now, is that you're like the kind of like bad boy of Valorant, cool. All right, well done. No one's seen that before. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, dude, just get on with the games, man. Like, all you have to do is say, yeah, my bad. The other team probably antagonized it, but it doesn't make anyone better, right? Be an adult about this. But I guess Twitch viewers like drama, right? They like to, I mean, everyone loves it. You get banned for a week, you get a free holiday, you come back, you get more viewers,
Well, in this case,
apparently, by the way, he only got banned
ban.
for 7 days. Someone in my
it's
chat.
7.
That's only a week.
There we go.
Okay, so it's
There
so
it is.
I-
The week
my
holiday,
God.
boys.
when it comes to this, Jordan, I mean, if you're a content creator yourself, it's a $5,000 tournament. The prize probably would have been nice as like a little bonus or whatever. But does he care at all about this? If your full-time income is something completely disconnected from competitive Valorant?
Not in that from the financial point of view, not necessarily. I mean, if I don't know what first place was, if it's 500, 2,500 or 5,000, whatever you said, like that could be that's a good amount of money just to make in a day. But it's even if you make $1,000 a day streaming or more or whatever, it's still like it's more just like it's kind of like this just thread of there's certain type of people that I don't get it, because it's like I understand the frustration totally, right? Like I totally it would suck if like someone just DQs you or you didn't talk to someone and then the people make you seem like you did something wrong. You're like, oh, we're just ready to play, we're streaming, why don't you message us? But it's totally unnecessary. I see it all the time with CS players that I know personally. They get emotional and they go on Twitter and it's like, it's one thing when you're doing something that's like a bad thing that the tournament's doing, like if they all forced everyone to come on at 7 a.m. For East Coast time start, and it's Pacific players are getting on at 4, something like that. Be like, hey, this tournament's a little ridiculous. They're doing this stupid thing, but like all of this should have not even been on Twitter. It should have just been a discussion, maybe an excerpt heard from the stream, and yeah, so even talking about it just seems so stupid because I've had my share of like complaints at tournaments in the past, like, oh, it sucks that we're playing at these monitors, and then over the years, even those little things I started to just not tweet because I'm like, okay, I should just talk to the tournament organizer or the people who can actually do something about it directly. And Anyways, silly, dumb.
I've never
Normally
said
don't even.
anything stupid on Twitter, and it's certainly never impacted my career in any way. So,
I
you know,
can't
as,
even go
as
down
far-
that route. Why have you done that?
Oh
Why have you
no!
said that? I'm still in the good books. Don't drag me down
Post it on
with
the
you.
screen, production. Where's production with the
Yeah.
screenshots of Moses tweets?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? It is what it is. The internet is forever, and I imagine this will probably be out of the discussion chain within a week. But you know, there's a little bit. It seems like there's bad blood between him and Hip a little bit. I can't imagine that this is their first interaction. But regardless, let's move on. I want to talk about the agents. We did have some agent changes come in. Who are you playing? Who's your main Who's your main agent right now, Jordan?
I was maining Brim in the tournaments from the get go, just because it was like kind of accidental. I just picked him when I was first playing, and then like when I was playing with Braxton, them they're like, "Oh yeah, they're like giving me compliments about him." I'm like, all right, then hype me up. Maybe I'll play some Brim. Let's go. And it's like, I think Brax just wanted someone to support him so he could bait everybody. And no, yeah, Brim. But then on the flip side, like Phoenix, I really like Phoenix. I was playing like a lurk role in that later part of my CS:GO career, but I used to be an entry fragger, so I'm like the youth is coming back through my veins as I get to play Phoenix and run in and bank bad flashes off the wall, blind my teammates, and still get fragged. So it's good stuff.
Pansy, who you playing?
Brim main, but I was actually kind of messing around with Omen a lot. Like I find him kind of fun. Like with the updates, I want to see how he does. But he was just kind of like a fun pick because he was like pretty different to what I was playing before. But yeah, I like utility classes. And Omen's like edgy, and it was just like a meme, so I just went with that in the end. But yeah, Brim main.
I personally play a lot of Cypher mainly because he's super overpowered. I just didn't realize it when I started playing the game. So we're just looking at some of the tier lists we all kind of worked up in the beginning here. The one note that seems to kind of on both sides continue is that Sage and Cypher are top tier, and Jet is fairly bottom tier, or at least shares it on her own, or maybe with depending on who you are, maybe with Omen or something like that. But does Jet need buffs? Like, is Jet's character just so, at this point, obviously in a competitive standpoint, she doesn't really bring a lot to the table. What's your first change to Jet, Jordan?
I mean, maybe the smokes last a little longer. I don't know. But then it could be unfair. I don't know. Because like I saw an interesting comp where instead of having a Phoenix, but you could self heal with Phoenix, which is so powerful. The teams with an Opper would play Jet, and then they would have like just a normal Sage, Cypher, Breach, Brim, and they would just kind of put up a bunch of defense, and the Jet would op super obnoxiously, and like you could see it work. And I think like especially if your Jet can get good, it has like another main, and in that case would be maining like would be a normal good fifth. I don't know. Yeah, like they would be like the Phoenix player probably normally, I guess. Then it's just that'd be weird for an opera. So it's tough. It is tough to kind of implement it. I've seen people like when you're playing, if your team's not super coordinated and Jet is around, you can take advantage. Like be on Haven if like you're playing one guy and be on Haven, and Jet like takes a shot, pushes him off the angle. You could dash the opposite side of the site so fast and fight the rotator one-on-one like all the time. And so it's like there's a big entry possibility, big defense possibility to just look over things and get kills. But most people play are pretty stupid and just like they're like, oh, jump in. And I'm like, you're like your team's all just like holding passive angles. But yeah, I don't know. I think you said this earlier, Lauren. It's like hard. You don't want to judge all the agents too soon. Jet obviously like Phoenix as your like DPS person makes sense. Your damage person because you self heal, the flashes, the wall. But
she just doesn't seem to do anything as well as anybody else, and I that's how I feel. What? Yeah. Okay. So give me your take on it.
Because, I mean, her ult. So okay, so let's look at the overall game design. Right, they were meant to have like ults that don't kill people. So her ult can kill people, and it's very strong. It's a very strong ultimate. It's one-shot kill. Essentially, it's very very powerful. So yes, the rest of her utility kit should be a little bit lighter. She should be a little bit more specialist if you want to use her. She should be that flex 5th pick. She can be. And I said I don't mind if you want to go for more of a utility-based agent, like maybe a Viper, an Omen, a Phoenix. Like any of those are completely viable. If you have like a specific way you want to play it, let's say you've got that AWPer who can just kind of play those crazy angles, kind of use it in like their mental approach to the game, awesome, play it. If you have a Viper who you can then, add on split, let's say, to have a free wall to go up, to have like, I don't know, set the little puddly thing she puts down, like set lineups to stop afterplants, go for it. Like the flex pick is a flex pick for a reason. I think you can get some, it's that meme of like jet mains, right? If you're going to be that aggressive, like puggy player who just wants to like be self-sufficient, then that's fine. Like as I said, you could do that with Phoenix and have a bit more for the team if you wanted. You'd have the flashes, the self-heals and everything else. Like it's meant to be viable. I don't think she has to be any stronger. You make her too strong, she has another ultimate that can kill people and has like really crazy movement speed. We also don't know what the rest of the maps are like, what the other agents could be like. She could be a good counter to maybe another agent's like utility kit down the line. So I don't think it's a bad thing for now. Not everything has to be super viable. It can be like a personal choice. Like I still don't like Sova being played out, if I'm honest. I think Sova's pretty bad. But I've also seen Sova in like, retakes, in entry fragging, like being
so
really annoying to play
annoying.
against. Like exactly, like he
When you're
can
holding
be
a site
super
late
good, but he's
round,
also
yeah.
situational. Yeah, you're fucked, right? It's like suddenly you've been sat patient on this site the whole time, you've not given it away, you're holding a nice angle, and then suddenly you can't leave that area without being spotted because they're already peeking your exit. So it's like
if they distract you at the right time and that one tracking dart hits you, or the one scanner thing hits you, it's so annoying. You're like, great angle, I'm gonna get like 1.5, 2 kills right here, and then you're like, fuck, getting spammed. It's so bad.
I mean, everything can work, and I don't mind it. But I think that's why like most of our S tier and like A tier are kind of the same. It's like they're your core pillars that you want. Like there's your like defensive half pretty much wrapped up by like Cypher. Everyone needs the Sage. You get your smokes with Brim. You get your flashes with Breach. There's your like utility kit spread out. And then that last player can be like that nice little piece that you can just kind of throw in, and if it works for you, awesome.
Yeah, Jet's in this interesting place where if you're in a tournament, you're going into the last game, maybe you want to mix things up. I don't think Jet is the first person or is the first agent that comes into the discussion. It's going to be, if you're going to diverge from the meta or whatever you want to call it. I just don't think Jet has got the chops right now to stand up with some of the other choices. But you've both made good points. We are going to go to a brief commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to dive deep, talking to Jordan about his experience competitive gaming, and we have a few more topics in the esports arena to talk about as well. So let's hit the commercial. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Valoranting. I'm WTFmoses, joined by and he's been talking with us all day, about all sorts of topics already. Jordan n0thing Gilbert. He's a former Counter-Strike professional turned talent, potentially back to turning pro Valorant player. He's been competing in all sorts of different things. He's shaking his head, but I don't believe him. It's been interesting to watch your career. I mean, from a spectator standpoint, I watched you play on Cloud9, and now watching you play Valorant in the T1 Invitational most recently has been interesting. And I wanted to hit you with my first question. How's the competition level, and just how serious is the next chapter in your pro career? Are we going to see some titles in your future in Valorant, or what?
I have a couple of titles already, right? Code Green and what is that? I want those online tournaments. I don't know. It's been pretty alluring to stay in the talent kind of streamer influencer lifestyle, just because as much as I love traveling and seeing friends, and I actually do want to like hop on the analyst desk ASAP and like be at some events. I mean, obviously I love competing more than anything. Being at tournaments and competing to win things is like the most fun job I could have imagined. Like entertaining people and streaming is awesome too, and it's all fun for me. But obviously the reason I'm not doing that, and I don't know if I will, is just the schedule and lifestyle. It's like I have like a house now. I got married secretly like in December, and I didn't really talk about it. And I like have like a garden here. I've been like gardening and like cooking a lot, and like just doing these things that are like, so it provides me such an interesting like catharsis, just like doing these small little things. When I used to have like these schedules that would go into the night, like I purposely end my stream before the sun goes down because I like to go outside before the sun goes. Like I just these things that I can control by being on my own stream. I sound like an old person, and I love it. But beyond that, I love competing as well. So playing in these tournaments has been interesting because, it was actually fun in this last T1 tournament. The way I lost was actually fun. Because the first couple of tournaments we won, we didn't even practice. We hadn't even scrimmed together. We'd go in, and the comms are a shit show, and we would still figure it out and we'd win them. But the last tournament I played is like me, Justin, Hiko, and I know you'll pull up some footage in a minute. Yeah, here you go. Like these tournaments, I actually kind of had fun losing because it showed that these teams, they had been practicing together. Some of the old CLG guys I had played in 1.6, Mousepads, whatever you want to call them, FNS, Cutler, those guys. And they beat us, and they had some plays ready, and like my mind immediately went into competitive mode. I saw counters in my mind. I started visualizing how I was going to beat it. I had picked a character I didn't play a lot in this first game, which was Sage. Like I know how to play Sage, but like it wasn't. This might have been game 2 actually when I picked Sage. But in our first game, like we weren't on the same page against their strats, and they beat us. It didn't feel like I was getting outskilled in terms of like someone's out shooting me, and that was fun because I hadn't experienced that until this point. So. Kind of tangenting to how it felt to play competitive. It's fun. It's a little slower than CS:GO in some senses because you have to respect it, or it could be faster if you catch them slipping. But overall, I don't know if I'm going to compete for a living, but it was a blast playing these tournaments and stuff.
It's like Tyson. Mike Tyson used to talk about like he's happy with his life now. But don't put him in a boxing ring.
You see those punches the other day? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, well, he said he's making a comeback, but he used to say, like, I remember him talking about in interviews, like, I don't like once that ego sparks again, like it's the fire. It's like brings you back to your youth, whatever you want to call it. But I want to talk more about the gardening, but we're gonna have to leave that for another. We'll have to leave that for another day.
Onions. What do you want? Pomegranates, limes, lemons.
Pansy, I wanted to bring you in on this because I guess the question now is, and I'll get your insight too, Jordan, is that we've had these tournaments. There's some higher level. I think T1 has probably been one of the highest level. Big cash there as well.
Yeah.
You're talking about strategy and stuff like that. Are we starting to see maybe of what that skill ceiling starts to look like, and how is this tournament landscape kind of evolving, Pansy?
I think the skill ceiling's pretty untouched right now. I think people are kind of getting to grips with I don't say basics of it, but like the competitive basics. Like everyone's got their set pieces. People have worked out what their compositions they like. Everyone's got their mains, but it's still entry level. I mean, people have had their hands on this and they're going to grind it hard. But as I think it's like Jordan saying then, like, once you start seeing teams like, I want to see teams like not necessarily anti-stratting, but okay, well, this is the set piece that everyone runs. Here's our answer to it. Here's our counter piece, right? And then I want to see, okay, well, then how do they change it up now? It's that kind of like progression I want to start seeing because I think for now it's not stale. I think you're just still seeing the same teams who have like, super good aimers, super good fundamentals, just kind of running these tournaments pretty heavily. And we haven't seen too many competitors to that yet, and it'll get there for sure. I mean, the rosters are still trying to work out who they're playing with, but I think once we start seeing the counter to the set plays, once we start seeing the CT side aggression coming in, and these other small pieces that make a game super fun to watch, then I'll start considering, okay, that's a skill ceiling. Okay, now we're starting to hit towards what we can expect from like a more fleshed out set piece. So as said, I think there's a lot more to be seen from this. I think once we see, okay, here's the set 5. They've been together a couple of tournaments now. They actually practice. They actually run like theory pieces. They're not new to an FPS scene, in a competitive essence. So they know how to get good. I want to see what they can do with it, right? Like that's when it gets fun to me.
Jordan, how are you feeling right now in your experience with you're talking about strats and counter strats? Are you seeing advanced things? Or are you still thinking it's the early days? How are you kind of feeling about the overall skill and where the game is headed right
now? It's so I've heard people kind of phrase it like this before, and I don't know if I agree with it yet, but it's like maybe it's kind of as close as that. It's like it's got a pretty high floor for skill, but like a lower skill ceiling than maybe CS:GO still. But I don't know how true that's going to hold up. Overall, so what's interesting is like some of the skill sets you like Lauren mentioned, like there's like what characters they're picking. You don't know. Like some people talk about a pick fan face, and I'll table that for like maybe a separate discussion if that would ever even be interesting. I don't think with this little characters and the way FPS is, I don't think it'd be like viable. Like what does the league have crap ton of characters. But what's interesting to me too is like the depth of strategy has its going. Like Lauren said, it's still a new game, so the depth can only be so far. What I've started to see interesting trends though of like you have to respect ults and like this is your setup, but then if there's a Brim ult, you can't just like be tucked in corners. You got to play more spotty. If there's Breach ult, you can't get caught off guard like playing in the same spots. You got to like make sure you're firing from a little bit of depth in the bomb site. You know. And I guess I could bring this up and it could tie in. I don't want to derail us too hard here, but I saw Dazed and Seal talking about what about this game with no ultimates, just regular abilities. And I was like, honestly, like, could be pretty fun. It could be a dope mode to try if they have game modes eventually. Like they're gonna have deathmatch, I'm assuming, right? It could be like a no ultimate queue. I don't know. That could create too much of a dichotomy of people queuing up. But yeah, overall, I guess a couple of things to wrap it up. My thoughts would be that the skills, like the skill for like required for new people coming in is kind of like intimidating to some. Like they need to feel like they need to learn all these abilities, but like we've seen the CS players, and if you have good trading of skills, it plays a big role. But yeah, I guess I have so many thoughts about this. It's hard to wrap it up because
it's a big question.
We're still figuring it out, and yeah, I find myself definitely ripping hairs out more than when I played with noobs in CS. I feel like I can't control the game as much individually. It's what you need to be on the same page.
So I guess looking at Valorant and CS:GO, obviously your biggest pool of experience being in CS:GO. Did you ever feel at any point, and this is more so of a game knowledge versus being the best player, but did you ever feel that you kind of solved CS:GO? Did you ever feel that you had all the chess pieces in your mind kind of figured out? And do you feel that Valorant has a longer kind of distance to get to that level for you?
I think, well, if there was something OP with ability, so far they've like nerfed the things that have felt like figured out and like overpowered. There's like in CS:GO, when you figure something out and you feel like you kind of like beat the game, it only lasts like a tournament in the pro world, right? Yeah. Because a lot of it is, that's what we call the meta. What's the most effective tactic available? And when it stops becoming available when everyone realizes it, right? So you could still use it, but that's why you never really beat Counter-Strike. Some maps like Cobble, for instance, became a little stale because everyone eventually just realized the inevitable, which was, hey, on T-side Cobble, you could do a default where one guy is able to hold the boost room push and the long B push, the plat. And he was able to effectively just see if the CTs are flanking by himself. It'd be like if there's one corridor flanking on a map of kind of like how you get Cypher Trap stuff. You can just do that thing. And if something like that became broken and the map was broken, people would just be like, okay, that's what everyone's doing. They're going to do that. And then you create a counter. But yeah, it never really felt like you beat Counter-Strike. I guess that's why we loved it. I mean, look at I always love when people say, "Oh, it's still new maps. It's gonna ruin the game." Like, what? Soccer's played on a rectangle for the last 100 years. Like, it's just like I know it's completely different. It's not fair to compare like something like that the same.
I like
there's so many different dynamics.
No, I think there's something to be said there, and I think Pansy, I'll ask you this. So, having watched of competitive Valorant, having watched a ton of competitive CS:GO. Do you think that those most effective tactics are currently have they been fully explored? Does Valorant have there's been some of the meta stuff kind of with agent picks and compositions, but within those compositions, have we seen everything that we're going to see in those compositions as far as executes, synergy, that kind of thing?
No, I don't think so. I think there's still lots more to be seen. And I don't think many teams have fully worked it out yet. We're still seeing mixes. We're still seeing, it's very rare we're seeing like full locked in rosters. So how can you judge a mix, right? They may know one set piece or maybe know two or, a couple of defaults. They've got like good concepts, but the difference when you watch like a fully fledged team play, like in Counter-Strike, go watch a mix play and then go watch a team play and tell me, the same executes even look the same. Excuse me, they might know the same smokes, but they don't always know what that actually opens up, right? So it's like you could do the same set piece, but do you know how you're meant to kind of play to that? Do you know how you're meant to kind of exploit what you're
foundation
creating
is still being
with
laid.
that? Not yet. Exactly, right? It's like, so I think there's a long road until we get to people fully getting there, but I think you're seeing the very like basic pillars coming through now. I want to see what I want to see is a structured league somewhat, whether it be just online, like, you know, a regular ladder play or something, so you can see the same
You have
5
that
players
reps. You have the
grinding it out.
Yeah, the repetition. Yeah.
Exactly. So then we can see actually who is the best in NA over, you know, not just in a best of 1 group stage, you know, and then into like a best of 3 semi and then a final. That tells me who can play really well in the moment, but over extended time with time to grow and learn, I don't know yet. I think NA is a little bit more decided in regards to, let's say, the top 5 teams. You know, you've got a pool of players that it kind of leans heavily towards. EU, I think you've got maybe like 3 teams. But I want to see beyond that. I want to see, you know, what happens when you kind of give them that consistency to get better. Because I don't know right now how many invite or like practice groups there are going. There used to be a lot of like those internal like 10-mans and like a couple of like IRC groups and stuff like that. Or sorry,
They're going
Discord groups.
off a little bit.
They're there. I just need to see how much is getting done and how many people are in them. Because like I have a small worry that it's going to turn into this like, I don't say nepotism, but it's going to turn into like, well, we'll only invite the CS group of players because we know they're
People
good.
you know.
They'll play a good game. But then,
It's like-
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like
Then you only
inbreeding.
ever learn how to play against that, right? Exactly. So it's like I hope that there is a league that comes out or just like a ladder system soon that could, you know, really cultivate some exciting concepts and see how people evolve over time when they've seen the same thing beating them 10 times in a row, right?
That's what, and that's what I'm most excited for too. Is having the petri dish created where you can see these things unfold on a weekly or whatever basis, with a set amount of people who are dedicated to the same goal and have the prize pool. That structure, which I think is kind of the next step. Where like I don't think we're going to see that during beta at this stage. But one thing that does remain constant, regardless of what you're playing, is communications. And we do have a bit of a clip here with some comms during the T1 Invitational, which I'm excited to see. So let's roll that really quick.
Oh man, I was hoping you would play me that Twitch clip of the Twitch staff member saying that. You want me to smoke like NMA for you guys so you can get behind it or
You
something?
know, actually, maybe get your abilities. Get your abilities instead and just buy me like a bulldog if someone.
Like it.
This is so
Oh,
hectic.
uh,
Do you guys want me to smoke NMA for help this round so you don't have to waste
Any
your-
bulldogs?
Guys, what should we do?
Are
You
playing
this
aggro?
week, right?
Actually, go to this.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm hitting it with my E again, Skylar.
Okay, I'm just gonna swing after your.
You're in a,
No, it's okay. Hey, he was there. They were there. They definitely like they're trying to go long.
I'm playing mid. I got
Oh, they
vision on
joined it.
grass. Nothing mid. Watch C. Watch a
They
big
have
C
full guns
explode or
again.
Yeah,
something.
he was towards behind me.
Play the edge of this.
He just dropped Spike outside sewers. He's trying to destroy my trip.
Smoke's down. You have it? Or a garage, something?
I have ult and
I
stuff
could
here.
camera your long, bro. Kinda.
Only
Mid dead? I'm
Cutler's
fine.
ult.
Yeah.
Yeah, no ult, no ult. Smoke's here.
They destroyed my trip. Running up, vision my trip. I'm almost dead.
Looking along.
Smoke's down.
I have my ult for retake.
It's on already. I'm in the smoke.
Fine, default area.
You can follow my ult.
Spike
Alrighty.
I thought I was sick for a second.
Heaven one? For sure.
Last player standing. One enemy remaining. Enemy removed. Eliminate.
Lower, lower.
Go Shroud.
Just blessed.
Sure. Should come off right at the half right away, a little quicker. Kinda did, I guess.
Attackers.
That's peak advantage, bro. I'm just kidding.
So
No.
I'm interested to know, how does this clip compare to the old days? You know, are the comms just as tight as they were back then?
My gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's the same reason that this was hectic was the same reason I was telling you I was enjoying it more, because we were winning a lot when it was that hectic at first because everyone was hectic. But this was showing that people who are getting a little bit more coordinated are taking the prize. Just like how, what was it, Gen G won that. They won the T1 tournament, right? They won that
was
one,
the
right?
Yeah.
Yep. Or
Yeah,
it was
French
they did,
guys,
they
and
did
they
win
were
recently.
just. They weren't. You wouldn't call them part of that when you're speaking of nepotism, like part of that elite group necessarily. But these guys were they're good.
Yeah.
They definitely are some CS players, and they're skilled, and they came together and showed what a little bit of coordination can do. And yes, those comms. I hate, first of all, listen to your own voice sometimes, and then I'm watching how, like, hearing me talk about other people, I'm like, oh man, this is like, it'd stick me in like a white wall room and make me listen to those things. I'd go crazy.
Well, it's hard too, because in the moment you're like, you don't realize how much time is actually elapsing and like what you're actually saying, because you're in the moment, you don't really pay attention. But then you turn back and look back and you're like, what are we doing?
You're not an A. I'm supposed to be C. I said C push. I thought you said A push. Fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? Talking about Gen G is super interesting. This brings us right into our next topic, which is actually T2 and T3 players from CS transitioning away from CS into Valorant. We did talk about this last week. Obviously, big name Freakazoid, a person I'm sure you're well familiar with, having left and coming over to Valorant. I guess the context, and this is what we talked about last week, is mostly around the available salaries and that kind of thing. T2, T3 esports in general don't have a ton of cash flowing around, and with some of the signings happening in the Valorant space, I just wanted to get your take on kind of what's happening with that CS scene and your thoughts, Jordan, on what's been occurring as players migrate to Valorant.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is when we talk about like tier 2, tier 3, a lot of I feel like the fan base and just amateurs who watch these scenes, the first misconception they make is that a lot of these tier 2, tier 3 guys aren't as like mechanically skilled as a lot of the pros, and that's not it. I think I forget which one of you made this point early on, that a big part of, I think it's Lauren talking about like good players, is it's not just about aim, it's about what kind of demeanor do you have in a team environment, what kind of experience do you have, how do you communicate things, how do you what are you able to make fixes on the fly with your team? And so what's interesting, I guess that brings me to my point of a lot of these players that are skilled in CS, they just couldn't break into a team because it is a sensitive environment. And once you get to the tier 1 of any game, is you're trying to, like, even if a player might be good, you don't know if they would mesh well and buy into what you're doing. And it is kind of like, I think DK posted an article today that it could be a win-win. And I want to read his article because I'm curious, the win-win that tier 2 and tier 3 players might be going over. There's arguments against it that it could hurt whatever scene, but there's a crap ton of CS players that are at that tier 2, tier 3 level, and it's going to be interesting to see what new ones come up. But it makes sense from the salary perspective you mentioned that they would want to, jump over because, like I said, there's a lot of skilled players and new game, new chance to build chem with a team and make an impact.
Not to mention the baseline skill, Pansy. You kind of and sort of cut you off, but I wanted to kind of give you this.
No, you're right.
As the baseline is like you have this fundamental thing that you're bringing over. You're going to start with you're going to have this head start, and if you're not really well, for lack of a better term, going anywhere in CS, like I guess if the top of the top is always the goal. If you don't think that's a viable strategy, now's the time, and I'll let you go with that.
I think it just resonated with me because I saw a couple of talent from other games kind of talking on behalf of, what they see as like, oh, the tier 2, 3 players who, washed up, they're never going to make it into a game. They don't know what it takes to be a good player. I'm like, I don't think people realize how deep the talent pool in CS really is. Like tier 2, 3 players aren't bad at CS. They're exceedingly good at CS. They may be missing like one skill that a team might be looking for, but also just as like Jordan said, like meshing with a team, finding an IGL who wants to work with that and kind of like mold a new young player into potentially like this huge powerhouse. It's really hard, and
right?
it's a gamble. Exactly, right? It can work. It can 100% work. You look across the board in EU and NA, it can work, but it's hard graft, and people don't always want to take a chance on that because it may be a complete flop. So when I saw people saying, "Oh, they don't have the work ethic," I'm like, they've been playing CS for 10 years and haven't probably broken into the tier 1 scene. They've been close maybe a couple of times, a couple of tournaments. They've had, the taste of it. They play in the pracs, they play in the scrims, they play in, the ladders. But yeah, they're not going to every single event. But to deny their ability is just so naive as to how deep the talent pool really runs in CS with these young players. So like overall for me, I think it's an awesome opportunity and it's probably gonna be a big learning curve for these young players who never got that real like shot at being able to get that far, by maybe their own fault or maybe just simply not being able to be in the right place at the right time yet. They're going to learn very quickly what, the small fundamentals that they may just miss off on or may have just missed out on. They're going to get to have them seen pretty publicly pretty quickly. If they get into those bigger tournaments, if they get into a good team, and let's say, yeah, maybe they are missing a little bit of like, the ability to kind of refine their own game style against, the highest end, right? Let's say they don't have that motivation to sit there, watch those demos back and go through their own footage and, really work on their own craft. there'll be a huge kick up the arse because they'll be instantly funneled out for that next hot player who might have that mentality, right? It's like this is going to be very cutthroat, and if these players aren't willing to adjust that small detail that might have hindered them slightly in CS, but team get a shot at the big teams, you're not probably going to get that. This is where I'll show very publicly and very obviously to them, and they should be able to quickly adjust it. So for me, I think it's a perfect thing. Like, bring them on. Like, let's see what these young players actually can do now they've got a real shot at something at the grassroots level. I mean, as I said, most of the guys in CS right now have been, high-end players for the last, 5-6 years, really. Even below that, even more. I mean, it's hard to break in.
It's absolutely incredible as well to see, a guy, Freakazoid comes to mind. I was really just kind of attached to that Cloud9 team back in the day, just kind of watching the team play and to see how players from that team, obviously yourself included, Jordan, kind of go through these different stages where even if you're at that 99%, you're in the 99 percentile. It's that little tiny factor that pushes you over the top into the tier 1 play. And to have all that skill come over to Valorant is going to give you that early boost. And we've seen that with Sentinels and that kind of thing, and contracts coming out a lot as well. And as someone who's involved in the player association in CS, helping guys navigate these kinds of waters, I'll ask you, Jordan, do you have any advice for some of these guys who are migrating over, signing these contracts? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, it's great. Just to add to what you're saying, the main recipe for being good at something is that interest and that excitement. And Pansy's totally right. You play for 10 years, and you grind. Sometimes some of that it's hard to stay in it. So I don't blame people for wanting a fresh start. But to your question about contracts and new players, just because you guys are excited that you got a salary, just because you guys are excited for the new opportunity, it doesn't take that much effort to get contracts looked over. I can do it decently myself at this point because I had help doing it. And I've admittedly made a couple mistakes in my career on a couple of small things, especially if you think your presence is gonna grow over the course of that contract. You got to bake things in because no matter what kind of relationship you have with your boss, you shouldn't be signing something just because they're very nice to you. They should also respect the fact that you need to look out for yourself. And it's not just, but he said like this just is in every contract and they're going to give me a good salary. So like, and he's cool. Like every time I talk to him, he seems cool. Well, like that doesn't matter. You gotta get the literature dialed in your contract. And that's why if you're going to get paid whatever it is, if you're a new player and you're watching this, you're going to get paid, even if it's only $1,000 a month, only is a lot for some people. A lot of these guys are getting $10,000 a month. That one-time payment to a lawyer, whatever it may be, is going to save you a lot of future headache. And if you're smart about it, it'll educate you because you pay attention to the process. And it's super important. In the Players Association, obviously, we offer support. We have lawyers on hand that offer support, and they're going to probably want to extend into other games. But yes. Super important. It's not the most fun thing, but also having someone on your team, maybe a temporary manager or someone to help negotiate. If you're uncomfortable with that, that's the whole reason a lot of people have them. It's just so you don't have to have that relationship. Yep. You can just be like happy-go-lucky player. Hey, I'm gonna go practice. I don't know. Talk to Billy over here, my manager. He'll tell you what I will and won't do, and that's the reason that can help as well.
Yeah, having a proxy as well. I mean, dealing with Pansy's agent, what a headache. It's just constantly. Just
maybe you'd still be in PUBG if you got a nice agent in there. Moses. I don't know.
Maybe
someone on your behalf. I mean.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And just checking my notes here, it appears that we have the same agent, so I'm just gonna have to take that in stride. Let's jump over to the next topic, which is the results of the Elite Esports Rivalry Bowl, where Cloud9 or pseudo Cloud9, whatever you want to call them, did end up taking it over High Ground in the final, I believe. Oh no, that was over Mousespaz in this particular one in the NA winners bracket, and then they went on eventually to win the whole thing. The winners and losers bracket, something to kind of take note of here. And the first thing I wanted to mention, we talked about them last week, is this relatively new Sentinels roster end up going out early in this tournament. This was a lot of hype around this team, obviously, with Sinatra, the reigning MVP of the Overwatch League, coming over. They do end up going out to Counter-Strike teams, essentially. I believe they lost to Mousespaz, and then in the losers bracket again to an unknown team. At what point in these little tournaments do we start to be a little bit more critical of this new Sentinels team? I'll leave that
Yeah,
one for I'll leave
I
that
don't
one for
know.
Pansy. Or sorry, excuse me, for
Yeah, we
Jordan.
can go back and forth. We can go back and forth on
I'll
this one. I
jump
don't have
in
much
straight
to
on
say
this one
because
then.
it's.
Yeah, I'll
Sorry,
take
my
this. I
bad,
mean,
guys.
you got to give them a little bit of room on it, I'd say, for the Sentinels, because you have some really good players in there, but you're also bringing across, some players that haven't played this style game for the vast majority of their lives. So it's going to take a little time to get like the intuition right. And for a lot of the players they're coming up against, it's second nature by now, like how to play in post plants, how to play in, just how you approach the game, right? How you envision a round going is second nature, and it's very comfortable. And all they have to focus on is like, okay, I'm probably going to get a fight here. Let's see how I can work myself into this. Whereas for some of the other Sentinel players, it's going to be a little bit harder, I can imagine, because as said, you're up against people now who've played this style, this mentality for the vast majority of their competitive careers. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be a point where you're going to ask the question like, okay, did this experiment work? Did you get the press you wanted off this? Or is this actually going to be a big competitive push from you? Like, if it is, then, you have to put a time limit on it and you have to see results eventually. Okay, 1 or 2 tournaments, is that enough? Probably not. It's a small time frame. I'd say give them a bit more room if they're showing the right mentality to approaching it. And I think that's something only a coach, only a manager, only the other players will know. Beyond that, I mean, losing out to Mousebaz is pretty reasonable. Those guys are extremely good. I don't think anyone's going to say anything otherwise. They're a very solid bunch, but you're also going to have a lot of very solid bunches, right? Like, there's a lot of big teams out there, so.
Did they announce their 5th for sure? Like, is Def for sure on their team? Or is it just a forced act? Because they also might not be practicing a lot. Like, I'm sure they're playing together. You never know how much they're, like, dry running things, though, or, like, theory crafting together. They could just be, like, doing some games together here and there.
Yeah, I don't see
our team beat them in
a
that
full
T1
5.
tournament, but I think they were playing with Ace or something as a 5th instead of Def.
Yeah, they've
last
had
time.
Dizzy
Or Dizzy
and
or
Def
something?
stand in. Yeah.
That's what I meant, Dizzy, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The question was when do we start being more critical, I guess, and it's like 2 more tournaments? I don't know. Another month or 2. Yeah, that, you could go if I knew stuff about more teams, it'd be unfair for me to go in on them because I know a little bit about them. But like there's different reasons teams aren't doing well right now.
Yeah, let's maybe bring it back a little bit as far as the kind of zoom out and look at the Sentinels team. Like there's no real and as these tournaments have different competitors every week, you're not going to get the same repetitions against the same levels. And I imagine that in this situation for Sentinels, you're just not going to have that solidified practice. They don't have your fit. They don't have a fifth. They've been trying different people out. So until the roster's locked in, I imagine there's going to be some turmoil and testing and making sure they're working out the kinks. Looking at the other side of the tournament, however, or the other side of that bracket, I should say, in this particular tournament is High Ground, a team that we've seen a couple of times in the finals, winning or being close to winning a lot of these things. These are a team of former professional players comprised of Vegas, Dre, and basically Valier. There's a bunch of guys who have all been a part of high level teams in PUBG. Obviously, PUBG Esports is not the first breeding ground of talent you would expect for Valorant, but this team has shown time and time again that they're able to play with guys that have that tactical shooter experience that they just don't have. So it's been interesting to watch them. And actually, Dre played on Tempo Storm, a 3-time NPL winner. So very exciting to see these guys coming from the NPL stage and into the Valorant stage and having some success. I'll put this one up for Pansy, as we've both seen these guys playing in multiple different tournaments. Shout out to Toffees and Seltzer, by the way, as well as Microstar. But this Tempo Storm team had a lot of success, and Dre gave it up all early. He left early and even gave up one of those championship runs in NPL. From what you've seen from these guys, is there something to be excited about here, Pansy?
100%. I mean, they're grinders, right? Like they did it in PUBG. They got to the top in that. They're willing to put in hours. They like each other, which helps, right? Like if you've already done a stint of probably, they had to probably live together in NPL. They've had to, turn up, go to the studio, do the things, right? If you get on with your teammates, it helps. It's not a necessity, but it definitely helps out, and they're willing to put the hours in. And of course, they have a background in FPS games, so. Yeah, it's not CS. Yeah, it's not instantly transferable, but if they're willing to put in the hours, it doesn't really matter. obviously CS players get a leg up, but it's not Counter-Strike. They're not coming into Counter-Strike and going, right, well, we're here to win this. They're coming into a new game with a lot of new approaches, new maps, new looks, new guns, new everything. And if they're going to put the hours in and they're going to, approach it in a competitive mentality of, right, let's do dry runs, let's practice, let's scrim, that's it. They're good to go. Jordan, are you muted?
Yep. I noticed in this game the time that it really like because there's a part where the CS skill definitely show, and that's technically probably where I get more tilted in this game. And it's normally like a microcosm of the actual round. It's normally like in the situations where you are entering a bomb site, you do need a trade frag. Post-plant situations where you do have control of an area and then you give it up for no reason because you think you're playing with your team. That's where like a lot of the CS players shine in those small areas. But overall strategy and gameplay and how you set up a round and use abilities is definitely not obviously a CS skill exclusively. I mean, obviously the part of it that is using smokes for map control, using mollies to flush out areas, which would be like smokes in Valorant or mollies in Valorant. But you have different things now that you have to take into consideration. So that's where I think it's cool to see the PUBG players, the Apex players, or whoever, any players come in and show their little flair of skill. Like I said, I think the CS skill more comes down to just like I said, trading, map, certain post plants, and other than that, it's and those are massive aspects of the game, but. Yeah, it's cool to see different games finding different ways, different players from different games finding different ways to win rounds.
I kind of look at this high ground team like they're trying to claw their way out of the dead esport that they're leaving. Like the motivation, I think, is much higher for them to try and compete and succeed. But I mean, we have to look. Yeah, exactly. Just to whatever it might be. I mean, there's lots of different examples you can give in that situation. If it's CS 1.6 into Source, and then finally to Global Offensive, and then for Cloud9, the guys that ended up winning this team, they are operating under the Cloud9 banner under tens, but these guys have been winning. So at what point, I wonder, will we see an actual Cloud9 roster kind of formulate and then start to hit those reps as well? So for Cloud9 winning this one, what has been the big standout for you, Jordan, watching these guys play as far as their executions, their strategy, and their team compositions?
Well, to be honest, since probably the last 2 weeks, I haven't played much of their comp. I played with and against tens a bit a couple weeks ago, and then at that last tournament, I played with Relic. So to me, it's kind of like we're talking about. Things are still being developed. It's hard to read too much into how these teams are playing right now. Tens is just an interesting example because he's one of those guys that has a little bit of experience, kind of like a Shroud aimer who came in, and he was removed, I think, from the Gen G squad because of, in the CS, he didn't want to meld into their style of play. It's going to be interesting to see him at kind of the helm of a team and what he provides to a game like Valorant, because he likes to play somewhat aggressive. I'm curious if he's going to find teammates on Cloud9 that are going to want to match that pace of play that he likes and allow him to do what he wants, because he's definitely one of those CS players that's are they going to transition well? Yes, they're going to hit a bunch of insane shots, but what is their place on the team going to be?
And Pansy, there's a great nugget in there I wanted to pull out. So right now it's kind of, and shout out to Cloud, they're winning. They are winning these things. Mm-hmm. It's still early days, but Jordan just touched on something really interesting. Like Tens is like that go-getter player, that aggro player, the highlight guy, and now he's, for lack of a better term, in charge of putting together a roster to compete at Valorant, whatever it might end up being in the next 6 months as the scene develops. Do you think that there is any downside to having a flashy streamer type kind of, I'm not going to say one-dimensional because I don't know him that well, but that kind of aggro guy leading a team? Is there any issue there?
He doesn't have to lead the team, technically. I'm always a bit of an advocate for having a strong IGL, having an overarching voice there, having set pieces that mesh together. Yeah. I know you can get a very heavy aim style team. I mean, look at, again, CS is the easy example, right? FaZe, have been through the literal phases of okay, we'll have no in-game leader. Okay, we'll have every aimer in the world on this team. Okay, we'll buy everyone out who's the god tier gamer. But it's which composition actually works, right? You want a bit of a balance. So for me, it's Tens, I think he's not stupid. He's not going to go, right, let me go find the 4 other pug stars that I can pick up. It's like, okay, let me find an IGL that understands.
Yeah, I don't
my
think he wants to call
mentality.
strats.
Exactly, right? It's like, let me find someone who's gonna like understand what I want to achieve and not like kind of cage me. Like, let me play the way I want to play, but also understand how to win for the team, right? Like, he's not going to be a greedy player. You don't get to that level to be considered. Into like even tier 1 CS teams or high tier Valorant teams if you've got that mentality. So I think for him it's going to be interesting who he thinks is going to supplement and support that play style, right? It's like if you're going to bring Relics, he's a really strong player, very, very solid. There's a couple of other players he might be trialing out, and it's like, okay, can I gel with them for the next 5 months? Can I work with that? Is that going to suit my style? They put a lot of pressure on a young man to decide like, okay, this is what we're approaching with. So hopefully he's got the right mentality, and I'm sure Cloud9 will support it too, right? I feel like they're an org that's not going to do something super dumb or super short-sighted, so I'm sure they'll have some sort of like influence on that as well. But yeah, I think it's an exciting prospect to see who he sees as his best shot of making a competitive team, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, man, there's just so many different compositions. And really, I think that I hope that we'll start seeing more inherent like Valorant guys kind of coming up the ladder. If we can see it like a top 500, that kind of thing, hopefully seeing that maybe there's some talent out there that hasn't been discovered. On the flip side, we've got the Valhalla, the Glory and Valhalla tournament also had its week 3 cap off with Royals taking the final, comprised of what appears to be mostly UK-based players in this situation. So Royals taking a 2-0, 2G4L, won, I believe, the previous week of this tournament as well. Any thoughts on that one, Pansy?
I'm trying to remember the roster. I know it's like K-Piz and people like that. Like, I know some of those guys, and I know Chet pretty well who's playing for it. Like, Styles is an old COD 4 player. Like, I know a couple of the players in the scene, and 2G4L is old COD 4 players. But, like, in COD 4, they were at the end of the scene, but they were, like, high tier. They were the young guns coming into that and, like, causing everyone to lose their minds. They had, like, crazy movement, like, different styles that we hadn't seen too much of. It was a very, like, stale meta by the end of it, and they really shook it up. So I'm excited to see the young Finns, or not so young Finns anymore, come in. Like, Replan used to be, like, the sniper, right? He'd make those highlight reels. He'd be the crazy player who'd just, like, change around. But they've played together for years. I mean, they went to COD 4, Battalion. They played all the search and destroy style games out there. So they have that mindset already. They, if you look at, like, teams coming into this or players coming into this, you're going to have like CS players with like the fundamentals down as well, right? And, a little bit more of the game like aim style coming into their fundamentals, their like toolkit. Whereas the COD 4 guys, maybe not so much in like the aiming style, because it's a little bit more Counter-Strike like, but they understand every like post-plan entries. Like, they've got everything else down, right? It's very, very similar in that regard. Cinder used to be this, again, like some of those players, they used to be so good. They were the young kids coming up that kind of like cost a lot of people some tournament wins. So it's good seeing them doing well. Royals, I think K-Piz and Styles had some good experience in Counter-Strike. Styles, or Chet, I think his name is in that, came from COD 4 as well. So you're seeing a lot of like these players who've had history in FPS games, finding some new rosters, throwing in some like young guns to like flesh out the roster who've just been grinding hard, but they understand how to like get shit done. They know how to get good at a game. They know how to like dry run strats. They know how to like get into stuff. So it's good to see the EU scene's definitely like, it's peaking a lot towards like everyone going, well, Scream's playing, so he's going to win everything. It's like, yes and no. I think you're going to see them a lot because they're in all the invited tournaments. They've got a good roster. They play very well. Like, Scream's obviously a god at every game he touches, right? The guy's got aim. There's no disputing it. But it's like, once you see these teams like fully working things out, it's going to be really good fun. So I'm excited to see the EU scene really come through. So that's my excited point here.
From the spectator standpoint, and I say this purely as an observation, but I mean, do you kind of feel that Jordan, the European scene seems to be lagging behind the NA scene as far as Valorant is concerned? I mean, if Scream is their guy that they're kind of getting behind, is that kind of is that the deepest we could see EU go? I'm trying to dance around the fact that when was the last time we saw Scream doing?
Let's wait till like Scandinavia really gets hold of the game and see what's going on. The old roots. I mean, to be honest, I'm not watching much of others. I'm playing the game a lot. I'm not one to put a breakdown on the European scene right now, to be honest. I'm looking forward to all the great players from around the world. I think it's cool to see like the UK scene, for instance. I saw like Siggy, the observer for Faceit and in Flashpoint CS tournaments. They're out there winning some tournaments and stuff. Heck yeah, there's gonna be a big talent pool. in Europe and
Yeah.
and shit. Is there any place where there's like, a lot of CS players, FPS passion? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I think it's just a matter
I'm
of
glad
time.
you
Super
brought up
super
Soloqueue,
early.
actually, real quick.
Go
Like
ahead.
that Fish 123 roster is actually a very fun one to look at. Like that could do pretty well. I know a lot of the people who know the UK scene specifically, obviously it's like not a big scene really. You kind of end up knowing most of the players. They're definitely getting a lot of attention and they're playing very, very well. So they're probably if you aren't just looking at your streaming superstars or like, you know what I mean? Like those sort of things, they are the guys to watch. They have been winning basically most of the tournaments that aren't just like streamer invites. You know what I mean? Like that kind of heavier bias. So they're a team to keep your eye on. They'll probably be one of the first to be picked up, I'd say, in Europe of like, that's not just like, oh, we'll pick up an influencer or, a Valorant personality and see if they want to go competitive, which I feel is like happening a lot, which is fine. I don't think it's a bad idea. A lot of streamers are taking this very seriously right now, but these guys are a little less streamery. Like they probably all do have streams, but they're not like you're, sitting there with like 5K viewers. It's more, get a couple of hundred and they're happy. So it's like for me, they're the ones that you got to keep your eyes on. These sort of guys going forward. Fish 123, the Finnish guys I was talking about. These sort of players are definitely gonna be the ones to kind of cause upsets and everyone go, what, who the hell are these players? How are they beating Mixwell and Scream? And it's like, because they've been grinding as 5. They've been playing as like, right, this is our chance to get out of, the lower tier end of CS and get into maybe a higher tier end of Valorant.
And that's going to be a common thread. So they did end up picking up the win here in week number 3. We'll be keeping an eye on Royals as they continue on. I wanted to take actually one more look at the so it was a week 3 championship. So I guess that week or the weeks continue for that tournament. Not sure how long it's supposed to go, but Royals, a team we will be keeping an eye on as they continue. So shout out to all the teams out there still grinding. I think that's probably going to wrap it up for us this week. We've had a tremendous time talking through all these different topics. I have to give a huge shout out to Pansy and of course Jordan for joining us in and giving us all sorts of crazy insights. Really appreciate your time today, Jordan. And next week we will be bringing in and we'll have some final thoughts here in just a moment. Next week we're going to be talking about bringing in Vegas from High Ground. And I think that's going to be a great discussion. Talking to him about the experiences of leaving Pro PUBG and coming into Valorant. Final thoughts from you, Jordan. Anything you want to add? Any shout outs?
No, just a shout out. Thank you to you guys, Lauren and Moses, for being good. Getting me to talk a little bit here on the show, bring me on the show, and keeping it smooth. Appreciate it. Thank you to the Do Not Peek crew. You guys, I'm streaming this, so guys, give you a shout out. Even though it sounds like I'm shouting out on your stream, I'm shouting out on my stream. Check out Do Not Peek. They do a lot of great shows run by people that you would for sure know. So give them a follow if you want. They're on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Absolutely.
Well, we're going to shoot you guys over. Pansy, as always, an absolute pleasure. And I'm looking forward to talking to you next week along with Vegas. So we're going to send you guys over to visit the stream of Jordan. And you can follow him at twitch.tv/n0thing with a 0. And we'll see you guys next week, Tuesday, 11 p.m. Pacific, or excuse me, 11 a.m. Pacific time. And we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, we'll see you out there.